As faculty marshal, I declare that the 124th year of the Iliff School of Theology is officially open.
Good morning. Please join us in this call to gathering. We gather to begin a new school year, to affirm values that give us meaning and purposes that make our work together urgent.
We gather as persons whose values make us feel like exiles in our own land and time, and yet as persons of some privilege in an abundant universe.
We gather to listen fully into the expansive depth and breadth of our experiences. We gather to learn to respond effectively and generously to what we hear. We gather as summer is ending in our neighborhood with brilliant blooming flowers, and as war is being waged between governments and between peoples in many places.
We gather to celebrate
the fullness of interconnected life and to lament and to war what undermines or devalues its interconnection or its fullness.
We gather to begin a new school year, to affirm values that give us meaning and purposes that make our work together urgent.
We have gathered.
Let us begin.
Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to our 124th year. A school that has never been afraid of crossing boundaries, of forging pathways in theological and intellectual endeavors and in social justice, and never been afraid of inviting people to the table of theological education that so many other institutions have excluded. Distinguished faculty, retired faculty, adjunct faculty, students, trustees, and members, staff members, and members of the community, we have a lot to be grateful for as an institution. Our work together and our place in the world, I believe, has never been more important. Although we are here celebrating new beginnings today, let us not forget that we are coming out of a summer of laments and of suffering and of fear and anxiety all over this planet on which we live. And our work, as I said, perhaps has never been more important than at this particular moment in history. I'd like to begin by welcoming a new member of our faculty, Rubén Arjona Mejía. Please rise. Professor Arjona joins us as instructor in pastoral theology and care and will be completing his dissertation at Princeton Theological Seminary throughout the school year. I would also like to welcome back Professor Ted Weil from sabbatical. And I would like to extend an invitation now, back of your program, to join us again in this chapel on October the 13th from 5 to 6 p.m., where we will celebrate his installation as Professor in Modern address on that day, followed by a reception. On your promotion, actually, or you went on sabbatical, so welcome back. I would also like to remind you that Professor Anju Kim continues first and will rejoin us for the winter term. For those of you who have not yet, who are new students, she is Professor of Homiletics and Liturgics. Also this fall, Professor Mark George is on a long overdue sabbatical, an academic year sabbatical throughout the 2016-17 academic year. In addition to that, we will have on sabbatical beginning on January 1st, 2017, Professors Miguel de la Torre, Amy Erickson, and Tink Tinker. We wish you all the very best. We believe that cutting-edge scholarship and time for renewal and revitalization only pays off very, very well back in the classroom with our students. In case the community is wondering, why are all of these professors on sabbatical? A few years ago, when times were a little bit leaner, we instituted a moratorium from 2009 to 2012. And on behalf of the faculty, I would like to thank the Academic Affairs Committee of the Board of Trustees and the Board of Trustees for their steadfast commitment to not only bringing sabbaticals back in 2012, but also to their commitment to have as many of these overdue sabbaticals processed and approved within an 18-month period. So again, thank you. We highly, highly appreciate the work that the Board of Trustees does on behalf of the entire institution, but also in support of faculty development. Now, this is a season for new beginnings, and we have a significant number of new students. I want to address also those of you who are joining us on the live feed, whether you're at work, whether you're somewhere else, or whether you're just in your pajamas at home. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you. I have no idea how the grace of God or the promptings of your heart and your mind led you to the Iliff School of Theology, but I do want to make it very clear on behalf of the faculty, the staff, and other members of the Iliff community that we are committed to your development and to nurturing your intellectual and spiritual pursuits. And really, we want you to become the most whole person that you were intended to be by whatever means you came here. So the journey begins for many of you this week, And for those of you who are returning to the Iliff School of Theology, regardless of which degree program you are in, or if you are a joint PhD student, your journey continues. Thank you very much. And again, I welcome you all and wish you the very best of blessings and peace during the coming year.
I invite you to reflect upon the words in our first reading. The Growing Edge by Howard Thurman. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. The fruit ripens on the tree. The roots are silently at work in the darkness of the earth against a time when there shall be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. It is the extra breath from the exhausted lung, the one more thing to try when all else has failed. The upward reach of life when weariness closes in upon all endeavor. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair, the incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and people have lost their reason, the source of confidence when worlds clash and dreams whiten into ash, the birth of the child, life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well to the growing edge.
Well, shall we be together? Source of all being, we acknowledge the beauty of this moment as we gather together to begin journeying together. Yes, with uncertainty, openness, and gratitude, we embrace the journey and all that it will bring. As we enter into learning conversations, guide us into the difficult and honest questions about our existence in this world. Press us to challenge age-old assumptions that make our life and the lives of so many in this world violent, unjust, and broken. As we encounter otherness, assist us in opening ourselves in radical ways to those whose difference confounds us. Cause us to struggle towards living together and the world community in ways that affirm our sacred distinctiveness. As we stumble and succeed and are transformed by this journey, help us to be grateful for the opportunity to learn here at Iliff. Give us moments where we can celebrate the gladness of learning through peacemaking, partnership, and allying with those who are at society's margins. Yes, the journey, with all of its twists and turns, successes and failures, joys and pains, stretching and breaking, tears and joys. This is our journey we embrace together. Let all that has been said be heard in peace, and most of all with justice in our minds. Let it be so.
A reading from The Trees by Richard Preston. Moving upward steadily through the labyrinth, Steve and Marwood reached the top of Nameless an hour after they had jumped into it. As they neared the upper surface of the redwood canopy, they saw that sunlight was shining through a Gothic lacework of branches, illuminating masses of plants which glowed with varied shades of green. Steve, leading the climb, broke out into a lost glade in the sky. The top of Nameless had been sheared away in a storm that occurred many centuries earlier, and the tree had reacted by driving a radiance of branches spreading horizontally in all directions away from the broken trunk, like spokes coming from the hub of a wagon wheel. Those branches had sprouted vertical trunks like spikes on a crown. A forest of small redwoods had sprung out of the top of Nameless wood.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for everyone who's been reading and praying in this space today. And welcome to the 2016 opening Convocation. This gathering always marks the beginning of our community's new academic year. So welcome, students, both in this space or online, and I'm looking right at you. You are very much a part of this community, you folks who are logging in with us today. Welcome, members of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the faculty and staff, and welcome to the members of the Board of Trustees. Welcome, alumni and friends of Iliff. And some of you who are with us online, we again welcome you. We are a community together, and we feel each other's presence in this space, however we are coming to it. But let us give a special moment of welcome to our new students. I echo the words of our dean. If you are a new student, please look around you right now. And if you're at home, just imagine this room filled with people who are in the process of teaching you and supporting you in all kinds of ways. But please look around. Look at these faces. These are professors, staff, fellow students, alumni, trustees, loved ones, friends of Iliff. In every direction you look, you will see people who are here because they have a deep commitment to create an environment in which you will thrive. These are the people who have made a commitment to that. So now I did not say make it easy. I said we'll make it so you can thrive. Thriving is not the opposite of meaningful struggle. It isn't. They actually go hand in hand as you wrestle with your identity and vocation, as you fine-tune your courage, as you develop a way of thinking and seeing theologically, and engage a deep moral discourse that will change and sustain you for the rest of your lives, literally. That's all. No, that's everything. And we believe that here. If you are nervous, good. That means you have thoughtfully come here respecting that you will not remain the same person you are now. And I invite you to remember that your presence here will have an impact on all like you, like those who have gone before you. You are not passive recipients, but engaged change agents that will strengthen Iliff as you make change in the world. So again, to our new students, welcome, welcome, welcome. We live for you. The year 2017 marks Iliff's 125th anniversary. So we're right on the verge of it. We can almost touch it. And before you know it, you'll be through finals and we'll be into it. In any way, in one way, anniversaries are really arbitrary observances, really. After all, what's in a number? But they are also an opportunity to take a moment and pause and take stock. Where are we? Who are we? And where have we been? And where are we going? We do this by remembering where we have come from, the good memories and the difficult moments, the successes and the struggles, the successes despite the struggles. Thank heavens there are some of those. And with enough time, an institution emerges with a story, a tradition, a purpose, a being, a culture. An institution is not a thing. Couldn't possibly be that, because it is a history of the meaningful actions of human beings. It is also a bundle of potential energy. And we live between what we've created and what we are creating. We look at all of these human encounters and we listen to what those moments tell us about what the place is all about. And if we listen honestly and without spin, we feel the moments of failure when we did not live into our fullest. We hear the stories of those times when we transcended our own expectations. We label them by episode and stamp them by era. And if we are feeling extraordinarily honest, we make sure we remember them as they are and not as we need them to be. Not inflated and not diminished, but real. Real as we can remember them. But either way, those moments are recorded in our memories so that we can make sense of our time here, in our own search for meaning in this place. So as our observance year approaches, we will do this remembering together. Together, those new to us and those long among us. All of us lifting up those who are no longer with us, but who remain in the air and the woodwork, these pews, the classrooms, the offices, all of these spaces, our own cloud of witnesses, we will remember. Several years ago, Marilyn and I had the privilege of co-officiating a wedding out of town. It was a great moment. And as we were getting ready to do the wedding, we were just following instructions. And the instructions were this. It was on this grand grounds of a community. And we were supposed to gather all of the guests, the couple, all of the families. Everybody was supposed to gather in this one location on one end of the grounds. And we were going to process to the wedding. So we did this. We lined up and we did this. And as we were making the noise of joy on our way to this celebration, we could feel the people in the community who were not part of the celebration were joining it, because they would come and they would speak affirming word to the couple as they walked by. But the couple invited someone special in their lives to do a very special task that day. One of their friends was elected to carry over his shoulder and lead everybody a piece of wood that is a carved door sill, a threshold. You know, that kind of heavy wood that frames the bottom of the door, that collects our dust and our mud and prepares our entrance to the house. He carried this threshold over his shoulder, and all the way across the grounds until we got to the chapel where the wedding was to take place. And then he stood with it over his shoulder aside the door as everybody came in together. And we gathered, and the last person was in. He then placed the threshold at the door we had just entered, because the next two people that were going to be leaving would be the couple leading us again to the next part of the celebration. We had a great wedding. And sure enough, just on cue, and everything was perfect, the recessional began, and the couple turned and walked through the congregation, walked out the door, and took a step together across the threshold. And then we all followed. We poured into the aisles, and we just followed. And every one of us stepped over that threshold together. And it was just a lot of fun. And there was a real party mindset with real reason to celebrate and express our joy. Yet at the same time, the presence of a threshold was all on our minds. We talked about it at the reception and in the morning after breakfast. The first step across a threshold symbolizes uncharted experience. Life beyond the threshold is by nature unordered, unlived. And the life we have lived to that point remains attached to us, like it or not, following us right over it. We are all a blessed mixture of our lived and our to-be-lived experiences. This winter, Walter Brueggemann visited Denver as the guest of Montview Presbyterian Church, and Marilyn and I were there to hear him speak. He spoke of the experiences of the Israelites in exile, and part of his study with us was the reading of Psalm 137. And these words, "By the waters of Babylon, there we sat and wept when we remembered Zion." Now, to be honest, and I will only speak for myself, I immediately found myself trying to enter this picture and join my mind in the Israelites' grief of loss. And I was dwelling there for a while, and then Professor Brueggemann reminded us that in this particular text, the people's lament was actually nostalgia. That the voice we hear in the psalm is, in his words, the voice of the privileged remembering their privilege. In this sense, they were looking for life in all the old places. Brueggemann observes, people who spend their energy on the good old days, whether they're good or not, by the way, are unable to perceive the new thing that the Creator, that is emerging from the Creator. Our categories for where we expect to find life are well entrenched. They come to us in the forms of those sweet moments when all is as we want it to be, and we say, yes, this is life and it is good. And then disorder and disruption, or some form unfamiliar to us, imposes itself and is automatically assigned as death. But whether it is life or death, all of the categories remain neatly aligned with our expectations, and if something new is happening, it may well be that we are missing it still. Howard Thurman was my companion for the summer. I committed to reading many of his writings, and that's why I chose some for today. But in his book, The Search for Common Ground, a text I encountered years ago, there's a story I keep returning to over and over and over again. I cannot let this story go. I don't want to let it go. But I keep being drawn back to it. It's a story from his childhood in Florida. He grew up in Daytona. And he was a young boy, and he wanted to go visit his chum next door. So and that's the word he used, I went to visit my chum next door, he said. And he ran over to the house next door, and he was running around as he did. He never went through the door. He went around the house to find his friend in the backyard. And his eye caught the father of the young boy he was going to visit, his friend, who motioned from the window inside to be quiet and to come back around the house and come through the door. And when he did, he was shown why he was asked to be quiet, utterly still, because they looked out in the back, and here was his chum's little sister, a baby less than a year old, playing in a sandbox in the back of the house. And a rattlesnake had climbed out of the grass of the field adjacent to the house. And the infant, not having the instincts of alarm, and the rattlesnake, not sensing alarm, began to relate to each other. And the baby and the family's aghast, and they don't want any sound to appear for fear that it would disrupt that moment and raise all of the natural tendencies of this snake. And the baby would reach out and grab the snake and pull it back and touch its stomach. And the snake would curl around the baby. They were playing together. And after a while, much to the relief of the family and everyone witnessing this, the baby grew, disinterested. I've had enough. And the snake sensed that and began to go back into the grass. When the snake was a safe distance from the baby, the father, everyone went back into character. And the father lifted a bead on the snake and shot it to death. As you can imagine, this experience interrupted Thurman's view of how the world works. This unlikely encounter created new categories of relationship. Later in life, as a theologian, Thurman saw this as an illustration not of just a close call, but as a new possibility. His work of creating the Church of All People in San Francisco is a manifestation of new ways of being in relationship around religious and racial dimensions. As we reflect on our own history here at Iliff, I must tell you that when I was reading, as I've read this story and read the history of the people, the Church of All People in San Francisco, something was feeling familiar to me. And it turns out in my research that Howard Thurman and Sue Bailey Thurman were elder mentors to our own Vincent Harding and Rosemarie Freeney Harding. And as I was reading, I could not help but feel the influence of thought across generations, and through that transmission, its impact on our community. Blessed be. Janice read Thurman's brief meditation, The Growing Edge. And just to hear a piece of it again. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair, the incentive to carry on when times are out of joint. Don't we know that now? And people have lost their reason. Don't we know that now? The source of confidence when worlds crash and dreams whiten into ash. Thurman is always holding tension with us about where our gaze is and where our gaze needs to be. The world depends on us to look for those new ways, for life in all of those places that it is not expected or welcomed to be found. In other words, in all the wrong places. Wrong in this usage simply means all the places we have been taught not to expect to find life. Places where we have been forbidden because of how we have been enculturated, imposed values upon us, how we have experienced restrictive belief systems, how we have been ourselves undifferentiated at times, how we have internalized self-hatred and bias. All those things that nostalgia protects and elevates. Do we weep in Babylon or look to transcend ourselves with anticipation of something new? So here are the headlines related to our situation. Theological education is irrelevant. The church is dying. Forms of spirituality are changing. This can make us feel defeated or restless. I choose restless, by the way, because restless takes breathing. When you're restless, you're fidgety, you're swirling in your seat. You can't sit down for long. You got to do something, even if you don't know what it is you're doing yet. It's a sign of life stirring. It's an awareness of what is emerging, even before we know what's emerging. But it is an affirmation that life is all around us anyway. The thing I have grown to love most about Iliff, the thing I love most about this place, is that when there is a crisis in this country or anywhere in the world, people take it to heart. You would have every reason to say it's too big. You would have every reason to say I have nothing to contribute. But that never seems to satisfy anybody here. That is great. And that is who we are. Vince read a beautiful portion from this book I read this summer. It was a gift to me, by Richard Preston, called The Wild Trees. And the whole book is about people who are curious about redwood trees, these trees that grow 350 feet tall. 35 stories. Let me translate that. And people were swinging around in these trees and risking their lives to see what's there. But what they found was not what they expected at all. And this story comes from early in the book when people hadn't even developed the science of climbing them safely. They were swinging into them and hoping they could land on the limb and not fall off. And this couple literally swung into this tree without any climbing apparatus and without any knowledge, without any history with these trees, just a curiosity of what's there. And they didn't have a name for the tree, so Preston calls it Nameless. But here another portion, the top of Nameless had been sheared away in a storm that occurred many centuries earlier. And the tree had reacted by driving a radiance of branches, spreading horizontally in all directions away from the broken trunk, like spokes coming from the hub of a wagon wheel. And those branches sprouted vertical trunks like spikes on a crown, and a forest of redwood trees had sprung out of the top of Nameless, centuries before and centuries since. The part we didn't read, and I want to tell you this detail, was in the next paragraph, but it was getting long, and I didn't want to leave it. I didn't want you to leave you with that much of a reading. But later, the climbers, when they got higher up, another hour's worth of climbing, found huckleberry bushes, by numerous huckleberry bushes growing and sinking their roots into the soft wood of some old trunk from the severed space. And the bushes were in full ripeness, and they were tired. And they sat on the branch and they picked huckleberries until they'd had their fill. Finding life in all of those places that we don't expect to see it. When there's dissonance in the world, it's not a sign of death, it is a call to life. When there's conflict in the world, it is a call to life. When there's disparity in the world, it's not a sign of death, it is a call to life. If we're willing to look at life where we have been taught not to look. Theological education is largely unlearning, and we're proud of that fact. So as we come to this year, as we imagine our history, maybe we'd be honest and forthright about our history, because the most difficult times of this institution have been the ones where some form of life have grown. When our trunk has snapped off, we have found a way as this institution to grow more life. It's in our history. And we have some broken pieces, but we have a will to live. So these headlines that we read, not true. That reinforces no life. The truth of the matter is the headlines actually point us to where the life is. As we face this year, may you find in broken places the call to life. And may you see the evidence of it, and may you find it and give it plentifully out of your own gifts. May this year be a threshold moment for Iliff as we continue to live our journey together. Blessings to all of you, whatever your role is in this institution. I am personally grateful for your service to this place and what you provide, and the hope and the joy that comes from it is called Iliff. Blessings to you.
We offer a request for a blessing for you and for yours, and whatever that means for you, for this place and this space, and what it means to be uniquely part of the Iliff School of Theology. Throughout time, you have surrounded us with love and wisdom as we have waded through the waters of the mysteries of creation. May we be blessed as we continue to wade into those mysteries. We come together in this community that we would find a common bond, a love for learning, a fight for justice, a call to help others. May we be blessed in that bond with one another. We lift up a blessing for our students, that they would seek the deepest value in the learning offered to them, that they would share their voice so that others would learn of their unique gifts and graces, that they would be open to the discovery of their authentic self, and that they would be vulnerable enough to recognize when they do not know what comes next, and that in that uncertainty we may still be blessed. May they be granted the patience that learning requires and the ability to ease the stress in the moments of deep tension. May we be blessed to know that there are many who want each and every student to succeed, knowing that all of us are called into the world to seek change for something better. We ask a blessing upon the professors and educators who are a part of this community, and grant them the willingness to share their deep wisdom, to delight in the discoveries of their students, and to endeavor to bring forward the truths to many eager minds. We lift up all who make this community more than just an institution. We offer blessings upon those who remind us how to care for one another, and those who care for each of us. We bless those who care for finances and business and books, and those who care for our buildings and our grounds. Let us leap into this new year with boldness and with those blessings following along with us, knowing that we are not alone and that justice, love, and hope will continue to guide us into the next steps of what this journey brings.
You have begun. You have begun by breathing together in song. You have begun by remembering in the word who you are. You have begun by sharing a vision, an invitation to live into the craggy edges, the growing edges, with restlessness. You've begun, so it's time to get to it. But let's start with lunch. As we go, let us join together at the table in Shattuck Hall. Will you wait for the faculty to recess and then greet one another as you leave? You have begun.